The year is 1949. The world stands at a crossroads, teetering between the devastation of the past and the uncertainty of the future. The world is still grappling with the aftermath of World War II. Cities lie in ruins, economies are shattered, and millions of people are displaced, struggling to rebuild their lives amidst the rubble. The Iron Curtain has descended across Europe, dividing it into two armed camps. On one side, the democratic nations of the West. On the other, the communist states of the East, separated by a line of barbed wire and ideological conflict. In the East, the Soviet Union, under the iron fist of Joseph Stalin, tightens its grip on Eastern Europe, imposing communist regimes and suppressing dissent. The Red Army's presence is a constant reminder of Soviet power and control. The West, led by the United States, watches with growing unease, fearing the spread of communism and Soviet aggression. The tension is palpable as nations brace themselves for what might come next. In this climate of fear and uncertainty, a historic alliance is born, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO. It is a beacon of hope for those who seek peace and stability in a world overshadowed by the threat of war. On April 4, 1949, 12 nations, the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Luxembourg, Denmark, Iceland, Norway, Portugal, and Italy, signed the North Atlantic Treaty in Washington, D.C. This momentous occasion marks the beginning of a new era in international relations. This treaty, a cornerstone of the post-war world order, establishes a collective defense pact. It is a promise of mutual support and cooperation, a pledge to stand together in the face of adversity. Its core principle, enshrined in Article 5, is simple yet powerful. An attack on one member is an attack on all. This principle is the bedrock of NATO's strength, a deterrent against any potential aggressor. The formation of NATO marks a turning point in the early years of the Cold War. It is a declaration of unity and resolve, a statement that the free nations of the world will not be intimidated. It is a clear signal to the Soviet Union that the West will not stand idly by as communist influence spreads. The message is unequivocal. Aggression will be met with collective resistance. It is a commitment to collective defense, a pledge to stand united against the perceived threat from the East. NATO's members are bound by a shared determination to protect their freedom and way of life. NATO's initial purpose is unambiguous: to deter Soviet aggression and, if deterrence fails, to defend its members against attack. The alliance is a shield, forged in the fires of conflict, ready to protect its members. The alliance's creation is driven by a shared fear of Soviet expansionism, fueled by the Red Army's occupation of Eastern Europe and the Berlin blockade of 1948. These events underscore the urgent need for a united front against the threat of communism. As NATO evolves, it becomes more than just a military alliance. It is a symbol of solidarity, a testament to the power of cooperation and shared values. The alliance stands as a bulwark against tyranny, a guardian of peace in a turbulent world. Over the years, NATO adapts to new challenges, expanding its mission to include crisis management, cooperative security, and partnership building. It remains a vital force for stability, ready to respond to threats wherever they may arise. Today, NATO continues to play a crucial role in maintaining global security. Its members, old and new, are united by a common purpose: to safeguard the freedom and security of their peoples. The alliance endures, a testament to the enduring power of unity and collective defense. The Cold War was a period of intense geopolitical tension between the United States and the Soviet Union and their respective allies. It was a global standoff, a nuclear chess match where one wrong move could have had catastrophic consequences. NATO, with its commitment to collective defense, played a crucial role in maintaining the balance of power in Europe. Despite the ever-present threat of nuclear war, NATO was not directly involved in any major military operations during the first few decades of its existence. The Korean War, from 1950 to 1953, often seen as the first hot war of the Cold War, did not trigger NATO's collective defense clause because South Korea was not a member of the alliance. However, the Korean War had a profound impact on NATO's development. It reinforced the perception of a global communist threat and led to a significant increase in military spending by NATO members. The war also highlighted the importance of conventional military forces as opposed to relying solely on nuclear deterrence. The end of the Cold War with the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991 ushered in a new era of global politics. The world was no longer divided into two opposing blocs, and the geopolitical landscape was rapidly evolving. NATO, once solely focused on containing Soviet expansion, had to adapt to a rapidly changing world. The alliance faced the challenge of redefining its purpose and mission in this new context. New threats emerged from ethnic conflicts and terrorism, which were not confined to any single region but spread across the globe, to the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. These threats required a coordinated and multifaceted response. The First Gulf War in 1990 marked a turning point for NATO. It was a test of the alliance's ability to respond to crises beyond its traditional area of operations. When Iraqi dictator Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, NATO members, led by the United States, recognized the need for a swift and decisive response. Launched Operation Desert Shield to protect Saudi Arabia from a potential Iraqi attack. This operation involved a massive military buildup in the region. This operation later transitioned into Operation Desert Storm, which was a full-scale military campaign aimed at liberating Kuwait and defeating Iraqi forces. Saw the deployment of hundreds of thousands of troops to the region. The scale of the operation was unprecedented, with forces from multiple NATO countries participating. While NATO itself did not directly participate in combat operations, its members played a key role in the coalition that liberated Kuwait. This demonstrated the alliance's ability to support international military efforts. The liberation of Kuwait was a significant achievement, showcasing the effectiveness of international cooperation and military strategy. Operations Anchor Guard and Ace Guard, launched in response to the Iraqi invasion, were critical in maintaining regional stability. Saw NATO deploy air and naval forces to the Mediterranean to monitor Iraqi forces and enforce UN sanctions. These operations highlighted NATO's capability to project power and influence beyond its traditional boundaries. This marked the first time NATO had taken collective military action outside of the North Atlantic area. It set a precedent for future NATO operations and demonstrated the alliance's adaptability and relevance in a post-Cold War world. As NATO continues to evolve, it faces new challenges and opportunities. The alliance's ability to adapt to changing global dynamics will be crucial in maintaining its strategic importance and ensuring collective security for its member states. NATO's commitment to peace and security remains steadfast. Through global partnerships and future missions, the alliance will continue to play a vital role in addressing emerging threats and promoting stability worldwide. Section 4. Intervention in Yugoslavia. A new era of humanitarian intervention. The breakup of Yugoslavia in the 1990s plunged the Balkans into a series of bloody conflicts. Ethnic tensions, suppressed for decades under communist rule, erupted into violence, leading to widespread human rights abuses and ethnic cleansing. The international community, initially reluctant to intervene, was eventually compelled to act. NATO's intervention in the Bosnian War from 1992 to 1995 and the Kosovo War in 1999 marked a significant shift in the alliance's strategic thinking. For the first time, NATO engaged in military operations not in self-defense, but for humanitarian purposes. In Bosnia, NATO conducted airstrikes against Bosnian Serb positions to enforce a no-fly zone and protect UN peacekeepers. In Kosovo, NATO launched a 78-day air campaign against Serbian forces to stop the ethnic cleansing of Kosovo Albanians. These interventions, while controversial, demonstrated NATO's willingness to use military force beyond its traditional area of operations to prevent humanitarian disasters. Section 5. The Afghan Quagmire. A long and winding road to withdrawal. The September 11, 2001, terrorist attacks on the United States marked a watershed moment in NATO's history. The world watched in horror as the Twin Towers fell, and the global landscape was irrevocably altered. For the first and only time, Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty was invoked, bringing the alliance into its first war outside of Europe. This unprecedented move signaled a new era for NATO, one where the alliance would take on a more global role in combating terrorism. NATO joined the US-led invasion of Afghanistan, targeting Al-Qaeda and the Taliban regime that harbored them. The initial phase of the war saw swift victories, with the Taliban quickly ousted from power and Al-Qaeda's network disrupted. However, NATO's involvement in Afghanistan evolved into a long and costly engagement. The initial successes gave way to a protracted conflict, with NATO forces finding themselves embroiled in a complex and multifaceted war. The alliance took command of the International Security Assistance Force, or ISAF, in 2003, leading efforts to train Afghan security forces, rebuild the country's infrastructure, and promote good governance. These efforts were aimed at stabilizing Afghanistan and preventing it from becoming a safe haven for terrorists once again. However, the war proved to be a complex and intractable conflict, with NATO forces facing a resilient insurgency, rampant corruption, and a lack of political progress. The Taliban, though initially defeated, regrouped and launched a sustained guerrilla campaign against NATO and Afghan forces. After 2 decades of war, NATO withdrew its forces from Afghanistan in 2021. The decision to withdraw was fraught with controversy, as many questioned whether the Afghan government and security forces were ready to stand on their own. The withdrawal was chaotic and controversial, with the Taliban quickly regaining control of the country. The scenes of chaos at Kabul airport, with desperate Afghans trying to flee, became emblematic of the war's tragic end. The Afghan war remains a contentious chapter in NATO's history, raising questions about the alliance's ability to achieve its objectives in complex and protracted conflicts. The lessons learned from Afghanistan will undoubtedly shape NATO's future strategies and its approach to global security challenges.